Hello, everybody. This is Joe Dyer. This is part three of the placement of the headstone with James Easton. And like Angie had done with the couple from California, she Skyped with them, and we've asked Gail Newman. She's the third great granddaughter of James Easton, and she lives in Eureka, Montana, which is located the northwest corner of Montana. And she said she's within a stone's throw of the Canadian border. So, Gail, if you would, could you just give us a brief history of who James Easton actually was?
I'll be glad to. James Easton comes from a long line of Eastons. His ancestor, Joseph Easton, was our first one into the United States. He was a founder of Hartford, Connecticut. His grandfather, James' grandfather, was Ahimaaz Easton. He is a Revolutionary War patriot. In 1816, James' father, Joseph, traded his land in Massachusetts for timberland in Ohio. And in August of 1816, he moved with his family from Massachusetts to Ohio. In fact, James' mother, Mary, died in 1818, and she was the second person to be married in the Mesopotamia cemetery. And James married Abiah Wildman, and they had 14 children, and they were all born in Ohio. And when they moved to Illinois, and it looks like in 1849, Jonathan Wildman, which would be Abiah's father, purchased land in Piatt County, Illinois. So when he died in 1850, then James moved his family to Illinois. And of James' children, my second grandmother was his daughter, Lydia Abiah Easton. She married her first cousin, Wilder Mack Easton, and they had a daughter, Hannah Jane, who is my great-grandmother, and she married Newell Charles Stanley, and she married James Jonathan Stanley and had Newell Charles, who's my grandfather, and his daughter, Bonnie Rose, is my mother.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a long history there. That's
It is. I wanted to throw in there that if anybody's
Sure.
interested, there is a book on the Eastons. It's called Descendants of Joseph Easton, Hartford, Connecticut, and it was compiled by William Starr Easton. And it has our family history from the first one into America through down till 1899.
Wow. Wow. Now, you had said that he was one of the founders of Hartford, Connecticut.
It is. There's a big founding monument in the cemetery in Hartford, Connecticut with all the founders, and Joseph Easton can be found on that rock.
Wow. That's amazing. Just to have the ties, kind of how they went from one coast to all the way with you, almost to the far coast, east
It's
coast, or
true.
west coast. That is so cool. That was very nice, Gail. I appreciate that. Just out of curiosity, I just to let our people that's listening to this, the headstone. I was contacted on Facebook by Kim Hendricks, and she's in a project called U.S. Cemeteries, and she's out. And her project is to have every cemetery in the United States documented with photos. And she's got a lot of volunteers, and she has a lot of one large website. And she had said something to me on Facebook that this headstone was in Atwood's visitor center in storage, and said probably she actually said there was two, and she said you ought to check into them. So a few days later, I went ahead and checked into it, and I got the police chief to, I asked him if it was there, and he said yes. Asked him if it was anything of, crime or anything. He said he really didn't know, but we did look at the headstone, and I took a picture of it. And while we were in the process, a couple days later, I stopped back in the police station, and our former police chief, Norman Mosley, was there, and he had remembered that somebody had placed it on the high school steps as a prank in the mid 1900s. Normal small town, little gags. But the last known time that I can come up with on records to know when the headstone was actually in the cemetery was in 1970, when the GAR went through and did their recording or the readings. So there's a blank, probably there are 25 possible years of where it was at. It's hard to say, but it was there. So I did look on Find a Grave and found the name, and I found the death date that matched. And if you ever get on Find a Grave, there's people who will create a memorial, and then they can transfer it to somebody else to actually take care of it. And I saw a name that somebody had created, which was Gail. So I contacted her by email and asked if this was her any relation, and gave her an explanation of what was that we had the headstone. So through the whole process, just constant or communicating back and forth, and I contacted Angie Johnson, and Angie's been very well documented of doing a lot of restorations of cemeteries and headstones. Her work is fascinating of what she's done, and she said she'd be more than pleased to help me have this placed because there are some criteria you have to meet. So I thought Angie would be the good person. So just keeping in contact with Gail, and it's just been overwhelming because it's been a learning process for me, and a lot of people are just fascinated how a lot of people aren't familiar with the technology that's there and what websites are there. So they think I was asked by the police chief, Norman Mosley, he said, I walked every cemetery within a 20-mile area, and I was looking for where it was broke off and looking for a profile and never could find it. And I said, well, Norman, it took me about 2 minutes to find it with a computer. And I told him how I found it. And he goes, well, we didn't have that. I said, technology probably wasn't that good then. I said, probably wasn't. So, Gail, could you just give us a little words on when I contacted you the first time, what your thoughts were?
It's almost not describable. I had him on Find a Grave, and I had put a request in to have a photo of the headstone. And a couple people had gone out and come back saying they've walked the cemetery, there's no headstone. And so based on the time, I'm going, okay, well, I'm not going to get it. So then when I got a call from you, I was so excited to actually see a physical piece of my family's history. And it just was, brought me to tears. And then the fact that you have gone over and above with his headstone and placing it and documenting it, it's just huge. It's huge for me, huge for my family, and we cannot thank you enough.
What you just said is all I need. Thank you. It's been a privilege doing this for you, and I just let some people also know. Gail and I feel we kind of become friends talking over the phone.
Very much.
She does have some relation in this area, so she's been wanting me to do some research. So we're going to continue this, and we'll keep people updated of maybe we can find some other information. Just kind of give a little more detail. James Easton has a son that's buried in Taylor Cemetery, correct?
Correct.
And you want to tell a little story with him?
His son Francis joined the Civil War, and let me see, I don't know what to say. He joined the Civil War. He was discharged because of a disability, and he turned around and re-enlisted under a different name and was released at that point in time. I believe it was in 1863. Mm-hmm. He got married to Henrietta Peacock, and then he died in 1865. And I don't know if it was because of the disability, but it was short.
It's fascinating that he was released the first time with disability and turned around and re-enlisted. That kind of shows maybe his patriotism, and maybe it went through the family. You said prior to James that, makes you wonder, did he know what his family history was at that time? And was that possibly why he might have from my research, a lot of people that enlisted in the Civil War didn't go back in after they were there. It was very seldom. There was a lot that did. If they were given a higher rank, they usually did because they knew they were less vulnerable towards the battle and possibly being injured or, the way things go with war. So if they could re-enlist and have a higher command and knew they'd be not on the front lines but be back in the support details and such as that, they generally would. But I noticed here he had listed both times as a private, which means he was generally he was doing the fighting. I did do some research on the outfit that he was with. Forgive me, I can't. It was with what he was with one of the units that was attached to Douglas County, and apologize for not having everything. It was a U.S. Cavalry is actually who he had signed with at one time, on the first time, I believe.
Mhm.
So he probably saw, and I know they were engaged in quite a few battles. They were involved with Sherman's March to the Sea.
Was he really?
Yes, he was.
Oh my, I
And
did not know that.
yeah, when I've got some history, Gail, that I'll get to you and let you can attach that to him. But actually, the outfits that he was attached to, I should have been a little more prepared, and I apologize. But I'll get you that. Because this all kind of came up within the last couple of days of discovering that he was a Civil War vet. Uh, I did look. Gail had asked me to take a picture of his headstone, and the records from Taylor Cemetery says U.S. American flag, and it had been broken off, and there's two large iron supports that's been drilled and bolted through that headstone. It actually covers up the where he actually served what outfit, and it says in the records they didn't know. So that's when I and I didn't realize that there was even any Civil War soldiers. While doing some more researching, I found another one that was actually there too. He's buried just a few yards away from him, and he does not have any kind of a recognition for Civil War. So if people can kind of take a guess, maybe you know where our next project's going to be coming from. So, but Gail, it's been fun. I've learned a lot, and I do want to. I mean, it's not your cousin when you sent me the email about kind of maybe approach this slowly because not sure what was going to happen, if there was going to be a fee, if we were going to charge you. It just kind of, it gave me a chuckle because he had mentioned about, he had heard where people use the ground penetrating radar and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And you had said that he's kind of, he's a good person, but sometimes he kind of he thinks out of the box, which is good, but sometimes he's kind of like me too. I kind of, well, is that going to cost a lot? Which I understand. And we assured Gail that there was not going to be any ground penetrating radar and no cost assured. When I was talking to Angie, we thought maybe it'd be kind of funny. I told her, I said, I got some stuff with gadgets. We could actually make up a mock ground penetrating radar and take it out there and shoot a video, let you send it to him, go, here's what they've been doing, and that, yeah, there is an accessible chart. But we thought, no, we won't do that. We didn't know if he likes jokes or not, so we decided not to do that. But we were doing it. And one other funny tail bit to this, when we were actually in the cemetery and putting his headstone up, there was two, Angie and I were on each end and actually digging the area that we were going to place the stone, and we had to go down about 18 to 20 inches deep into the soil. Well, in the process, we had an elderly lady drive by, and she noticed there was vehicles setting along the road, and she was looking back there, and I kind of looked up, and she was giving us a very strange stare with two people out in an old cemetery with shovels digging. And I can only imagine probably what was going through her mind. As I told Angie, because I'm a practical joker, and so is she. I said it'd be kind of neat if we had a plastic skeleton and just start throwing things everywhere, just to. But we thought, no, we better not. We don't want to draw more attention to this. So, thank you once again, Gail, and this has been very informative. And just to let the people know this, that we will keep you updated on the Easton family, because I think we're going to find some more things that might have, been influential in the area too. So, because this gentleman I've been talking to said that he does have, he wasn't familiar with the Easton family, but he remembers the name. So maybe he's got some stuff that, some information we might be able to give to you. Maybe we can kind of close this story and make it a little tighter so you get a full, view of what his life was. And just for the information too, I did provide Gail with a video of the cemetery coming down the road. And I thought, if she's never been to this, so I thought I'd just give you a little kind of a visual aid of where everything was at. And I stood in the back of a pickup truck. My wife drove it. And if anybody drove down the road, who knows what they would have thought. But I just kind of gave her a view of what it did look like. And I think you enjoyed that.
I loved it. And like I said, it was just like I was there. I could smell the grass. I could feel the sun. It was just beautiful.
So, well, Gail, I thank you once again. And like I say, people that's following this, stay tuned because we may have a part 4 to this whole story. Thank you once again, Gail.
Thanks so much, Joe.